What's a good word, everyone? It's your boy DKB here. I just want to say thanks for all the support. The channel's been steadily growing, and the number you see below, you can drop a text, shoot a voicemail, any ideas, topics, collabs, etc. you guys want to see. I'll include them in future videos and live streams, and I'll catch you again. Be easy. What's a good word, Jets fans? It's your boy DKB here. We're diving into our third wide receiver prospect from Steve Smith Sr.'s top 10 wide receiver list in Ohio State's Emeka Egbuka, and I've been in love with this kid for the last couple years. I don't watch a ton of college tape or games even outside of Rutgers just because I happen to be from Jersey, and of course when I'm diving into breakdowns like this, but Emeka Egbuka came on my radar maybe 3 years ago. I love everything Ohio State's been accomplishing since having Brian Hartline over there as the wide receiver coach. It just feels like literally on a yearly basis, they are pumping out some kind of top-notch wide receiver. And he may not have ever hit the ceiling he was expected to, I guess, is kind of this absolute demon of a do-it-all wide receiver, but he still has top-tier talents, and I don't think it'll be worthy of making a top 10 selection for. But if the Jets pull off some kind of trade where we end up moving back to the late teens, maybe early 20s, I wouldn't hesitate to pull this trigger for a guy like this if wide receiver is what we want to target here. But diving into some of his background, right? 6'1", 202 pounds. He's a former 5-star recruit. So the first player that we have to actually capture that ranking pretty much nationally. And to add to that, he was a top 10 nationally ranked player. I believe he was ranked in 9th nationally. He was a team captain his senior year, and regardless of the team that you're talking about, I think anytime you can check off team captain on that list of check boxes, that's a huge plus. You look at him capturing the team record for receptions by the end of his senior year, and this is a guy that is going to separate himself from what we talked about with Tet and Matthew Golden, because he's going to essentially be confined to that slot wide receiver role in the NFL, just because he doesn't have a trait that really stands out for him. With McMillan, it's the size. With Matthew Golden, it's the speed. Emeka Egbuka is just kind of the total package that's really capped by athleticism. I believe he ran something like a 4.42 or 4.48 when he was in high school. And if he ran anything close to that same time or was a sub 4.3 guy, you're talking about this being within a top 15 type selection as a wide receiver, and the ceiling being much higher than what many people would probably expect now. But even when you look at the comps, this is still a guy that you look at and say could be treated as a wide receiver one, right? And you've seen kind of this evolution of slot wide receivers that are dominant being the top option on some of these teams, as opposed to them having a natural, X or other type of, Z, Y, something along those lines. But he's been compared to Jackson Smith-Njigba, Amon-Ra St. Brown, and I think from a athleticism and route running standpoint, that may be the more of kind of carbon copy idea that you think about here, which would also obviously ring bells with Aaron Glenn here. And then Tyler Boyd, which is another really solid comparison that I liked that was dug up here. But working out of the slot, even in college, he was able to line up at every position, but definitely did a lot of his damage out of the slot, and he's run a gambit of routes. Choice routes, which is Alabama's a heavy, choice type offense, right? Option routes, outbreaks, double moves, fades, corners, shallow crossers, deep overs, digs. This is a guy that hasn't been limited by anything that Alabama hasn't felt like he could accomplish. And if anything, you can make the argument that, especially in his junior year, which he was inhibited by an ankle injury, also has some knee injury concerns creep up. Quarterback play really probably could have limited exactly what you were seeing from a stat sheet standpoint with a guy like Egbuka here. But the former baseball background, the former basketball background definitely shows up on tape, and we'll talk about some of the pros in this game here in a moment. But This is a guy that also brings a ton of versatility to him. In fact, he was a finalist for the Paul Hornick Award, which goes to the most versatile player. And that's by virtue of him not only being able to contribute to the rushing attack, he was able to contribute in the receiving department as well as kick return and punt return. And in fact, his rookie year, freshman year, there we go. His freshman year, he led the Big Ten in kickoff return average. So this is a guy that definitely has a multitude of ways that he could see the field right out of the gate. But a lot of people really feel like the floor is high with him. And so this is a guy that should be essentially a day one starter if you have a open slot position. And even if it's coming down to a competition, he's a guy that you feel really good about being able to step up and make the most of whatever kind of snap breakdown he's going to get. Coming off of his final year, 81 catches for 1,011 yards and 10 touchdowns. So he's not a slacker. This is very reminiscent of his sophomore breakout year as well, which he went for double-digit touchdowns and over 1,000 yards. And again, he had a little bit of that down junior year just because of some of the injury and again, some of the quarterback play. But what is there to really love about him? He's demonstrated the ability to be able to manipulate coverage. This is a guy, and it's early in the evaluations and stuff, but I would be pretty confident saying he's probably the smartest and most savvy route runner that we're going to see in this draft class, at least that has that notable name or that name notoriety anyways, especially with the school he's coming from, the wide receiver coach, which has garnered well due respect around the league. Last minute adjustments when ball tracking. This goes to, I guess, that baseball background, right? And his ability to have that strong hand-eye coordination and make really kind of twitchy adjustments that are very, very nuanced that many people just aren't going to be able to pull off. He has a pretty solid catch radius overall for the build, the arm length, etc. that he's going to bring. And he understands pacing and tempo of his route breaks. We talked about Ted McMillan, for example, which is a guy that is really fluid and understands also how to utilize leverage. You turn on the tape and look at what Emeka can do here, and it's really just a masterclass of being able to go out there and just kind of do what you want at will with the defender in front of you. Hand usage can create last minute pockets to kind of catch the ball or create that last bit of separation to where he's the only player that's going to be able to make a play on some of these balls, which is really, really impressive. And then you take a look at him purposely delaying adjustments, which really conceals any kind of keys that he may give the defense on. This is a vertical route. Let me change how, my stance is. Let me try to press up on him a little bit more. It's really impressive, right? I kind of think of like a ninja and his ability to kind of conceal his presence in many ways, which is the same way I look at what Emeka can pull off here. Consistently works back to the quarterback during the breakdown of plays or when scramble drills are going on. A little bit more impressive than what I've seen from any of the other two wide receivers we covered so far, because he has a habit of always being able to show his breastplate to the quarterback, which is a pretty clear sign at that point that he has an open catch radius, right? Or at least a pretty easy ball that should come to him. And maybe he won't pick up the yak, but it gives the quarterback an out and an option to at least be able to try to get the ball downfield. Already has demonstrated toe taps on the boundary, right? This is something that I feel like many wide receivers generally need to adjust to, even for those guys that have been working more on the outside as opposed to being a slot receiver. But with Emeka here, it's pretty much been a built-in piece of his game, and it's something that NFL guys would love to see as often as what Emeka was able to put up here from other prospects. An underrated stiff arm. He has a little bit of a jolt in his right arm that kind of rocks some guys back and can really just kind of bury somebody into the ground at certain times. You'd love to see it a little bit more often, but I'm comfortable with what I've seen so far. And again, it's not like you're talking about an extremely small guy here. He has some size and the demeanor to be able to back up pulling off some of those plays. Solid change of direction. I would say that when you combine that with just the fluidness and the understanding of how he's going to attack from a tempo or pacing perspective on his routes, the breaks, the head nods, all that kind of stuff, it's really impressive. A real true art of work. Navigates traffic well, and I think a lot of that goes to the return background, both in the punt game and in the kickoff, where you're talking about short field, guys being right up on you, having to kind of make something out of nothing. Sets up defenders by positioning his body to dictate defenders' movements. You're going to see a lot of nuances in some of the subtle head fakes that he does, some of the shoulder movements, even the positioning of his hands, how he's going to stutter step or kind of Rockefeller somebody into thinking that it's a double move. There's a lot of different aspects that he pulls off, and he can really string a lot of these together at once to sell a route and just leave a guy really contemplating what's going to happen in terms of how that route develops for him. Understands how to seal blockers, and this is one of the more impressive parts of his game, because he knows how to just lock some of these guys off and allow these outside explosive gains. And this is at least a calling card that he has up his sleeve compared to what we've seen again out of Golden and Ted McMillan so far. So again, all of these just really good signs about Emeka's floor being extremely high. And in some situations, you can make the argument that he will absolutely walk away day one as one of the top options in somebody's wide receiver room. Some of the question marks around him. Physical defensive backs are going to be able to redirect him, impact him in terms of some of the routes he's going to want to try to work, and even from a timing perspective, which I think when you look at offenses like the Dolphins or the 49ers, for example, that bring those West Coast principles, but at the very least are very precise and efficient in how they want things operated when it comes to the quarterback drops and where you should be at on the field. All of that lines up perfect with what Emeka can pull off, but these are going to be concerns, especially if somebody wants to get him more experience on the outside. Comeback routes need a little bit of refinement for him. I think you see a little bit of, restriction in his ability to kind of open up the hips at time or drop his weight, and then this flows into something else, which is he kind of has an issue with being able to accelerate back up to speed, and speed already isn't going to be one of his calling cards. Again, maybe this declined, or maybe he's somewhere still on par with this, but running that 4.42, 4.48, somewhere in that range from when he was in high school. So not a burner, but respectable enough speed to where guys should have to count for it. But you would love to see a little bit more explosiveness in terms of him being able to go back from 0 to 100 as quick as possible. Doesn't consistently fully extend at the catch point. I wouldn't say he's necessarily there at being a natural hand catcher, maybe just a notch or two below that, but he's not quite a body catcher either. But still, it's one of those things you want to see where you don't want him kind of T-Rexing some of these balls. Fully extend, allow yourself to secure these things, allow it to either be a catch or a drop, or maybe you're able to pull off some kind of flag if a defender is going to be draped all over you. Major concerns about his ability to adapt on the boundary. I already kind of talked about this, but one of the calling cards, or one of the things that'll make this as clear as possible that this is going to be a work in progress for him, is the fact that only 25.2% of his time throughout the 4 years he's been with Ohio State has he been lined up on the outside. Still can have some effectiveness there, but a lot of the time he hasn't had to deal with press coverage. He's been off ball. There's a lot of different things that are going to go into that. So not to say he can't ever get to that point of having that inside-outside versatility, but you clearly see where he wins on tape. And so that's not something you want to mess with, but you do want to account for that in the development plan as it relates to being able to find more ways to keep him on the field. And then he rarely stacks DBs, and a lot of that is due to the speed and just simply not running a ton of vertical routes per se. But he's not going to stack a lot of these guys to cause a little chaos on the back end or create some easy explosive gains. So just some of the limitations you have to be aware of, again, from more of an athleticism standpoint, as opposed to anything technicality wise or technical wise, I should say, that he's not doing or is incapable of doing. So this is still a favorite of mine. I'm going to hate draft day, seeing whatever team picks him up. I would love to see him fall to us in the second round, but I would assume once you start getting into the early 20s, this is trade up opportunities for some teams, and if not, it's a huge value addition for whoever comes his way. But let me know what you guys think. Again, Jets fans, is this a situation where you would purposely trade back with the hopes of him being on the board? Or even in that situation, is he a first option for you? Maybe he's not being looked at as the guy you want to trade back for, but maybe he's high on your list. But let me know what you guys think. I'll catch you again. Peace.